This is a video that's going to show people how to make their own frailty prompt and alert in the EMIS alerts box. I'm quite happy to share mine. I use the EMIS built EFI2 concept, and if you were to import mine from Primary Care Information Portal or from an email file, it will tell you that you have to overwrite existing concepts within the system. And I know some people will feel a little wary of that. I don't alter those concepts, and actually it's very difficult to alter some of EMIS's concepts. Even if you do manage to alter them, EMIS regularly refreshes, and I think it's most nights it regularly refreshes to make sure its concepts are up to date. So even if you have made changes, it reverts back to EMIS original concepts. But in any case, some people might want to build their own and know how to build their own. Now, if you want to build protocols and prompts, you have to have the right EMIS configuration or RBAC code for your role. Now, when I open my little EMIS choices here, I use configuration and template manager. So this is the main page for creating protocols, templates, prompts. I have access to this because I'm a higher level GP in my surgery, and practice managers would usually have access to this. And you may need to alter your role if you want to do this type of thing, and I go to Template Manager. Now, I'm going to create a protocol that will check every time a patient's opened whether their EFI score is greater than 0.24 and they're over 65 years of age. And so I'm going to use EMIS's own concept that's in our system. And if the score's over 0.24, I want it to flag up in the little alerts box, consider coding frailty, which in Wales means assessing patients using a Rockwood clinical assessment. So we can't just code people on the basis of an EFI score. We do have to code them on the basis of a clinical assessment. So we're going to have a concept that'll trigger an alert, and then I'm going to build a template so that people can access a Rockwood score, but also code frailty appropriately. And because we're doing this from the planned care team, we want the frailty status coded in a way that is recorded as a problem, so that when you refer or when you deal with other organizations, that frailty code will be visible to other organizations too. So the first thing I'll need to build is a concept. Now, you'll see along the ribbon here, there's a choice called Concepts Manager, and you'll have to open Concepts Manager. I have a variety of folders here, but you'll want to create your own folder, which for these purposes I'll call Demonstration Folder. And inside this, I'm going to create a concept. Now, to make a concept, you go to Add, and you say Add Concept. And what I want to make is a concept that's going to flag when somebody's EFI frailty score is greater than 0.6. I'm sorry, I think the recording went wrong. Greater than 0.16. If you have an EFI2 score of greater than 0.16, you're likely to be at least moderate and potentially severely frail. So we're going to add a concept, which is actually a rule based on an existing concept. And now I have to look for the concept. So I'm going to load the concept that's already in the system, which is the EFI2 score. So you're going to have to click search here. And I'm going to look for EFI2 score. And there's a couple of choices. Now, we want the ones for age 65 only. So this is EMIS's concept, and I want to find that. I want to find one with a value that is greater than 0.16, or at least 0.16, so at least the value 0.16. And I'm going to save this concept now in my demonstration folder as EFI2 greater than 0.16. And that's concept saved. So if I was to test that concept on one of my mice, it'll look to see, and it'll say their EFI score is 0.46, so they're not greater than 0.16, so it won't trigger. The next step is building the protocol. Now to build protocols, you have to go back to Template Manager. So you can see where I've gone with the mouse, with the ribbon, to Template Manager here. And again, I'm going to create a new folder for this protocol called the demonstration folder. So I'll create a folder called I'm going to create a folder called the demo folder. And now I'm going to create a protocol. So I'm going to add a protocol, and you'll come to this screen. And what I want to find is patients who have that EFI score of at least 0.16. So I'm going to find my concept that I've just made, which is EFI2 score, or EFI, in fact, I'll find it in my demonstration folder. So if I go to my demo folder, so I'll go where I saved that, and that's like EFI2 greater than 0.16. And right now, what this will do is this will check to see, is the EFI greater than 0.16? And if it is, I want it to put a little alert in the box here. So to do that, you have to go into the action nodes here. So I was in decision node. So now it's going to be an action node, and it's going to say add alert to alert panel. And this alert is going to say EFI at least 0.16. EFI2 score at least 0.16. And I want it to show EFI2 at least 0.16. Consider coding frailty. And I will do the same here. Now, the alerts, you'll notice sometimes when you're in the alerts box, there'll either be a red dot, an amber dot, or a clear white dot, depending on the type of priority you want to give them. For the purposes of this, I think it's a medium priority. And the alert display is a patient alert. The alert type is just information for us. I'm going to click OK. So the idea is if a patient has a score that's likely greater than 0.16, it would show in the alerts box. Now I know that this mouse doesn't. So when I test this, it goes no further. I'll find a mouse with a high frailty score. And now if I test this protocol on AF mouse, it should show an alert. So it'll show here, and an alert will come up here if I open the alerts box. There we go. EFI to at least 0.16, consider coding frailty. Now, that may be enough. You might want to just code it, free text code. You can make an alert, open a template. And to do that, we'll have to build the template that we want it to show. And then we'll have to save that template as a library item. So you could stop here and say that's all I want to do, but I'll show you how to make a template as a library item so that when you double click on this, it would open the template you might want to use to code frailty. So the first step is to create a template. So I now want to go back to the ribbon at the top to Template Manager. And in the demo folder here, I'm going to add a template. So this template, I might say, okay, I just want to be able to code, I want to be able to see a Rockwood score, and I want to code mild, moderate, or severe frailty. So the first thing I want in my template is a link to a Rockwood score. So the clinician can click in the box to see what the Rockwood score looks like. And the contract uses, or the contract that has this for our frailty enhanced service and a few other bits and pieces, links the British Geriatric Society frailty scale here. So I tend to use this one, and I'll just copy that web address and I'll go back to my template. Now, if you want to put a web address in a template, you can go to the left-hand side of the screen and the information component tab here, click on here, and you can select launch a hyperlink. So you have to left mouse onto that and drag it across into your template. And this is where I'm going to paste the Rockwood score. So if I then type in Rockwood score and OK, if you then test the template, you'll see that it has a link there to Rockwood score, and when you click on that, it'll give you the Rockwood score. So I'll close that and go back to the template builder. Now, I want people to put a Rockwood score in when they are coding this. So you'll then need to put in the code that you want people to use. So then I go back to data entry, because this is where we're putting a code in, and I'll have to find the code I want to use to code a Rockwood score. So I'm going to drag the clinical code here. And I'm going to choose Rockwood score. Now, when you are looking for Rockwood score, it's worth using the one that says Rockwood Clinical Frailty Scale score, because it'll invite you to put the score in when you're coding. So I'm going to click this one and OK, and I'll show, and for these things you can add data, you can prompt for date, grouping here. If you don't choose something at grouping consultations, this is going to be assessment, and click OK. If I show this and test this, you'll see it invites me to put the score in here. So for CKD mouse, they're moderately frail. They need help with all outside activity and with keeping house. So I'm going to say that they are scale 6, for example, and that would save it as a Rockwood Clinical Frailty score. But I also want to put in a frailty code, so either a mild, moderate, or severe. So for this one, I tend to prefer to use a code pick list. So I would choose this thing here, and I would say I'm going to choose mild frailty. I also want moderate frailty, and I want severe frailty. I click OK, and frailty code, and we're going to say that this is a problem. Now, the reason I want this recorded as a problem is that when WCCG, when you refer people into WCCG, it will pick up the frailty code that you've assessed that patient as having if you code it as a problem. It won't for anything else. So I'll click that as a problem, and then if I test that, you'll see it's inviting me to do the Rockwood. So I'll go to, moderately frail, and Rockwood 6, moderately frail, and I will choose moderate frailty when I'm doing that. And you could put other things into this template. You might want to put, you might want to add this to an existing template, but this is just for demonstration purposes. Now, what I'll need to do now is I'll need to save this template as a library template. Now, rather than having new section 1, I'm going to change the properties here by clicking right click, and I'll say properties. I want this to be Rockwood score and frailty status, and leave the visibility rule blank. And we're going to save this as a library template. So I'm going to right click, or you can click properties here, and save as a library template. Now, it's worth you being aware, if you haven't used the library template before, it'll only show you the EMIS libraries, and at this point it won't let you save them into the EMIS libraries. So apologies, I should have shown this sooner in the video. If you go back to Template Manager on the ribbon, and you'll see on here, in this little section here, if you follow the mouse up to the left, it has Templates and Protocols, Document Template, and tab to the right, you want Library Items. And again, I'm going to add a folder called Demonstration. So that now, if I go back to that protocol I was building, or the template I was building, in fact, you can see at the top right here, Template Builder. I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to right click and save as a library template in that demonstration. And I'm going to call it my Rockwood frailty status and save that. And I'm going to close that down, and I'm going to call that my Rockwood frailty status template. Now, the reason I've done that is to show you how you can make a template open from an alert. So I'm going to go back now to the protocol builder here, and this add alert box, where at the moment when we test this, it's just going to show the one alert, and that alert won't do anything. If I double click on that, it's not going to do a thing. What you can do is inside this alert module is add data using a template. Now, you can't open this into a normal template. It has to be a library template, which is why we had to save that as a library template. But if I search for my library template that I want it to open, I'm going to click there, and I'm going to go to this demonstration folder here, Rockwood frailty status. I'm going to click OK here. Now the difference now is when I test this protocol, and I'll give it a minute or two, and double click here, it'll open up that template we've made. So I can say, right, yeah, I think, mouse has got, oh, forgive me, hang on, it's just going to just take a minute or two to load up. Oh, seconds load up. It's just that I had something that was flagging for mouse. I go to Rockwood score, and I can look to see what the page shows. So if they're 1, 2, 3, or 4, they're not really coded as frail. Mildly frail is a 5. 6 is moderately frail. 7 is fairly frail. And I think, so we'll then say for him, I'm going to say, right, I think that AF mouse, or Miss AF mouse, is a 6. I'm going to say that they're moderately frail, and I'm going to save that, and that will save mouse as moderately frail. So I'm going to save and close that protocol. Now, if you want that protocol to work, again, it's in the demonstration folder, and I realize I've saved that under another folder, but that's an error on my part. And I'm going to call this my Rockwood score and frailty prompt. Now, for that to work and to load up every time I open a patient, I have to go back to where that template was, which was in this tab here, Templates and Protocols. I had to go left and right on these arrows. I'm going left to Template and Protocols, going back to my demo folder, that Rockwood score and frailty prompt. Now, you have to adjust its properties, so you can either go to Properties or right-click. And what we want this alert to do is we want this to load every time we open a patient's record. So we're going to go to Properties, and we have to look at triggers. And in this triggers, I'm just going to simply say every time that a patient is loaded, I want it to always check to see, and I want it to flag whenever these patients are at least moderately frail. And so if I was to close mouse down, and if I was to go back to open mouse up, when I load mouse's records, it'll automatically run the EFI score, and if the EFI is greater than 0.16, it'll show it in the alert, so you have to be in a consultation page for that. So it'll show the alert. These are just, mice have lots of test things on them, and likely to have a lot of alerts. So this one here, you'll see this is the cardiorenal consider flow-ins and the various things. And at the bottom here, EFI at least 0.16, consider coding frailty. Now, there are lots of different ways of doing this. This is a quick video to show that. There are other things that you can do, and if you want to watch for another minute or two, I'll show you a couple of alterations I quite like making in these templates. Now, if you want to alter that library template, you do have to go to the library template page. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to go to library items, and you can edit that template in the library items page. So I'm going to edit this. And what I want to do is I want to have the EFI score calculator inside this template. So to put a calculator into a template, you can do this for things like QRisk and other various calculators if there's a concept for them. I'm going to go down to the bottom left here, and I'm going to go to Common Components. If I go to Common Components here, and this is where you might put things like BMI, weight, peak flow, and the QDisc tools have been removed. You can still do a custom calculation, which is where you drag that. So I'm going to left click and drag it into here. Now, for custom calculations, what it can give you is a calculation based on the results of concepts. So I'm going to choose that EFI score concept. So I'm going to choose EFI2 score, and I'm going to choose EFI2 score for people over 65, and I say EFI2 is the parameter name, and all I want this to give me is that I just want it to give me the EFI2 score. The prompt is going to say EFI2 score, and the result code, I want it to record it as an electronic frailty index 2 score, and I might say based on EMIS EFI2 concepts, and again I'll have to put that it's an assessment. Now what this does now, if you test the template and you click calculate, it'll tell you the EFI score, and if you were to save that template, it would save the EFI score for you too. So I'm going to save and close and just show you that very quickly. So if we were to open and close mouse, and I go back to AF mouse, and if I go into a consultation screen, at the moment that prompt is set up to run, and so when you go to the prompts at the bottom here, and because mice have lots wrong with them, there's various things, but if I now double click on that EFI2 at least 0.6 consider coding, and I go into OK, and you can see that it's inviting me to put in, you can calculate the EFI score if you want to do it, which may be useful. Oh, forgive me, hang on, that's another test in progress for mouse. So there EFI is 0.176. We've already been and looked at the Rockwood and said they're 6, but was fine. We'll call them moderately frail. And I'm going to save. And what that'll do is it'll save the EFI score, it'll save the Rockwood score, and it'll save moderate frailty. And that's the end of the video.